Hello, and welcome back to Beyond Resistance Pod, where we share hard-won insights to build blue power in red communities and start winning. I'm Sara Schultz.
And I'm Jennifer Austin. And today we have special guests. It's the first time we've had podcasters on the show besides us, and also the first time we've had somebody on the show that we don't personally know in our real lives. So it's kind of cool. Some exciting stuff today. But Ashley Kindsvatter and Sara Petrie are the United She Stands podcast. They're both Ohioans and women in professional careers. But Sara and Ashley started their podcast in 2020 when they decided to become more educated and involved in politics and policy, and to bring listeners along for that journey. And you can find out more about them and links to their podcast on unitedSheStands.com. And Ashley and Sara, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you.
So yeah, thanks for having us.
Nice.
I feel really honored that we're the first podcasters on.
Yeah. And the first
fellow
strangers.
podcaster.
Yeah.
It's so nice to meet you both. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great to meet you.
I'm curious, we'll kind of start as we usually do on the Beyond Resistance pod. And this is a question out to all of us. What has you fired up this week? What's going on that has you fired up, either in a good way or in a negative way? What's happening?
You go first, Sara.
I was gonna have you go first because
You want me to?
I know what you're gonna say, and you articulate this so much better than I do. So please, yes, and I'll add color.
I wrote down two. I wrote one good and one that is kind of not so good. Which should I start with? Not good?
Whatever you
And
want.
We'll
Mine's
end
an
with
angry
good.
one, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then I'll go with good and go with because I think good will be quicker to talk about. I was super pumped to see the governor of New York endorse Mamdani.
Yes.
Oh my
so
gosh.
we're so excited. Yes.
Yes. I think there's been, at least like with other creators and online activists and people we talk to, a very large frustration from people on like the establishment Democrats being in the way sometimes. And so it was very frustrating. The people of New York spoke. They picked Mamdani as their Democratic candidate, and to not see kind of these establishment Dems fall in line and like endorse and get behind him was, I think, just so almost telling. And so to see the governor of New York kind of be this hopefully the first domino to fall, I was really, really pumped up about that this week. So
Yeah,
good.
that's an awesome one. That
Yeah.
makes me happy too. I'm
That
mad
makes
that it
me-
took so long, but
That's what I was about to say. Like, yes, I'm glad it finally happened, but oh my gosh, why did we have to wait this long to do this? So,
Yeah, the fact that we're just now celebrating this and how much we're celebrating it is silly, but happy it happened.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
yeah, it's like
For
this
sure.
whole, we've talked about it. I'm sure you guys have too. The idea that the people have spoken and the party has to get behind the candidates that the people have voted on. And this whole dragging your feet thing. Oh, I was just so mad. And it's like the epitome of what's wrong. You know?
Yes. You wonder why people don't believe in this party anymore, why we're losing voters. It's like, because when they vote and then you don't do what they voted for, that's why we're losing voters. It just seems so common sense. So yeah, that was a really big one. And then I think I'm guessing a lot of our bad one is probably pretty similar, but obviously just the gun violence this past week. I know you guys just did an episode on Charlie Kirk. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. That's one piece of that, but I think almost what is more my fired up piece out of it is how deeply embedded I realized it took like this for me to realize Christian nationalism is in our country.
Yeah.
I had so many people online that I went to high school or college with who are not political people. They'll never post anything about politics, like mourning and like, putting up posts, memorializing this man. And, we've shared a lot online about how like we completely condemn this whole thing. Obviously, any type of violence. We can empathize with his family. We can empathize with him. But that doesn't mean that like we get to rewrite his history. And I think what I really learned during this week when I kind of started engaging with some people who I felt like I could engage with, I was like, hey, why was this like your final straw? Like, why are you posting about gun violence now? Or why are you posting about this now? And the responses I got was what got me down this hole of like, wow, this is really because they believe this man is like a martyr. Like their church is telling them that he died for the Christian faith, And that there's one thing, there's a whole algorithm talk we can get into. I know a lot of people are talking about, right? They've never seen the bad posts of him or whatever. But I think it, for me, what more was the fire up was like, we have so much work to do to like deconstruct Christian nationalism. And that's terrifying, but also like, how do we march at it is kind of where I'm at this week.
Yeah.
I love that you put it that way. I mean, my fired up is also about the Charlie Kirk shooting, but it's not that particular aspect. And I love how you can get together with like-minded people. And even then, we still have different takes on the different aspects of the situation. So, thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's a great way to think about it. Sara Petrie, do you have one that you want to talk about?
What are you fired up about?
Yeah, I said Ashley's probably going to say what I wanted her to say about my feelings as well. She nailed it, but I want to add yet another aspect to the Charlie Kirk thing. What I'm particularly fired up about with that is the treatment and idolization of Charlie Kirk versus how specifically Republicans, MAGA, even more specifically, treated the folks that were assassinated or assassination attempt in Minnesota just earlier this. That, and like, I know this Republican Party. I know the MAGA. I know those who are MAGA. I feel like I shouldn't be surprised at this point, but I still am, and that's what's getting me fired up. Like each time something horrible happens, they still continue to surprise me because it gets worse and worse, and that is what is mind-blowing to me, and that is what's really keeping me fired up, that I'm like, oh, this has to be like rock bottom for them, right? This has to be the lowest they can go, and then the next time they somehow go lower, and it's mind-boggling.
Totally,
and they're really totally changing the perception of what is rock bottom, because what was rock bottom 10 years ago is just every day now.
Yeah, I keep saying, like, I have lost sort of the capacity to be surprised at this stuff, but I still have the capacity to be shocked sometimes, right? And those are two very different things. And so, like, I'll see a headline and I can still be shocked, like, not surprised because, we have all the knowledge behind, this and should anticipate some of the stuff, but I can still, like, my breath can get caught still in some headlines. And even just like exemplified by the difference, right? Exemplified by the fact that you can drive around here in mid-Michigan and see a bunch of flags at half-mast for Charlie Kirk's death, but we did not see the same thing for the shooting death of, a elected official in an episode of political violence in Minnesota. Like, but this guy who, like, his claim to fame is kind of, being an internet celebrity, we're going to half-mast all the flags in the country because of that. And that, to me, is like, it just exemplifies what you're talking about, Sara, which is like the disparity and the difference between how these events are being treated. And I've even seen like people post about the half-mast thing, and then just like a huge argument in the social media space just erupts, and like it becomes this like, how dare you, and how can you call yourself Christian, and all of the things, just because you point out the difference. And to your point, Ashley, like it is further sort of proof that we have a long way to go when it comes to this work. And it's so important. It's so important.
So do you want to do yours, Sara, or do you want me to
do mine? Mine is related. We're all just vibing on the Charlie Kirk thing today. But the thing that I cannot stop vibrating on, and it's gotten me worked up, and I did a bunch of writing on it last week, and it's still there. And I was posting in our friend chat this morning about it, is this, it's just the idea that what happened with Charlie Kirk was somebody was standing in front of a group of people, just like we all probably have been, and, saying what was, what he thought, just like we all have the right or should have the right to do, and he got killed for it. And the thing that fires me up about that is, like, when I say that, so in the sort of far left spaces, I get accused of victim shaming. Like when I say like, this is terrible, it's an affront on freedom of speech. It's what our country was founded on. And I'm personally more afraid for myself and my friends in activism after this happened. And what I'm hearing, like the backlash I'm hearing for that is not coming from the right. It's actually coming from the left.
Mm.
And it's this idea of that you can't speak ill against this act that happened to a man who was, by our accounts, pretty terrible. You can't like objectively say it was bad because that's somehow like victim shaming or something, right? And that to me has me fired up. And like I've been in lots of kind of sidebar conversations about that, and standing, I'm willing to learn, right? But I'm also like, this is still objectively terrible, no matter who it is, because morality and ethics aside of a person getting murdered, like this also erodes our very democracy and makes all of us a little more afraid to stand up and speak our truth, which is like something we should all, no matter who you are, believe is awful. And I'm fired up that it's not clear to everybody that that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think there should be almost no argument, and like we should all condemn this act of violence. It doesn't matter who that happens to. Nobody should be killed for standing up in front of a group of people talking about politics, because that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
It makes the world worse for all of us.
I know.
Yeah. I've definitely been hearing, I've been trying to listen, because that's the stance I take. I don't want to see anybody die by gun violence or be, killed for speaking even the most horrible things, because that erodes our First Amendment rights and makes all of us less safer. But I've been listening, like I think some of what I'm hearing is like from some Black women I've heard, like, well, just don't say things like violence doesn't belong in our politics because it always has. We can say like, we don't want violence in our politics. And they're like, semantics matter, because if you say violence has never been in our politics, then you're saying it like from your perspective, it hasn't. But as a Black woman, it's part of my daily existence. So that, just I've been trying to listen to different people say things like that. Another person that I talked to talked about how maybe some of the things we're seeing are not necessarily celebration at a death, but more of a sigh of relief that somebody that is saying violent things about Black women, about trans people, about gay people, about all the different things that he has espoused. Some people maybe are expressing a sigh of relief that, okay, he can't do that anymore. I didn't want to remind them that murders can be pretty powerful, but I get what they were saying.
I get that, but some of the stuff that I've seen is not a sigh of relief. It's terrible.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
So Sarah, I'm actually in.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Sarah, I'm actually interested to hear you say that, because I've seen a lot of people on the right saying like the left shouldn't be celebrating this, and I'm sitting here like, at least no one I've seen is, and that's why I've been so confused by that rhetoric. I'm like, who is celebrating this? Every major politician, every major like political influencer we follow on the left has straight up come out and said we condemn this act, and like. Yeah. Nuance, right? Just like we've just all talked about. But so I'm interested to hear kind of that.
Yeah, I'm happy to share some like memes that I've seen, right? Especially just right afterwards. But like, and I feel gross even describing them, but like literally.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
we don't have to. I was just, I'm kind of, I don't want to say glad, but I'm just like to know that it's really happening. Because in my head a little bit, I thought this was like the right saying like the left is doing this. And I was like, I haven't seen the left do that. So.
I'm sure the right is doing that too, right? But like.
And we don't know how many are bots, but for sure, like Sara and I have known like literal people that we could, call up on the phone that have said stuff that we're like, ugh, must we?
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, we're all fired up.
Oh wait, I didn't fire mine up. I
I'm sorry.
One more little thing to add to make us all just pissed off even more. So my fired up is Trump and Vance and Alex Jones and Nancy Mace and all of these other people saying that it's Democrats' fault and this is a war on Democrats and the Democrats have brought war to us, and just inciting. And I will even say the governor of Utah, I don't remember his first name, his last name is Cox, but he said a lot of good things that I agreed with, but now he's saying that it's a leftist that the shooter was leftist, but when pressed for details, refuses to give them. And I'm like, I just don't trust any of you anymore. So, I'm going to have to see some evidence here before I believe that that's what, is true. But even if this person was leftist, it's one person who is radicalized, and it's a white male again, who has access to guns and grew up in gun culture. So, I mean, all of those things still apply, but I'm just really frustrated that they're like, you have to tone down your rhetoric. What rhetoric? What have I said? What have any one of us said that would incite violence? And for the most part, what have our politicians said? Even our most leftist, so-called radical politicians like AOC haven't said anything that's violent inducing. So yeah, that's what's got me really ticked off and fired up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Can I just say, look, isn't it sad that probably, everyone on all sides right after this happened, I know in our spaces, like our private chats and things, we were just like, who is it? Were they white? Were they Christian? Were they us? Like, who are they related to? Just trying to figure out, like, who's going to get the blame for this afterwards, instead of being just like, oh my God, this happened. This is terrible. This is objectively terrible. Like right away, right? There was all this blame, even from the guy who occupies the White House, right? Right away saying that this was, radical left or whatever, and setting up that dichotomy instantly, so that we're all just like, trying to figure out through the details of the investigation. It's really sad. It's a really sad state to be in, where we can't just objectively be like, man, that was terrible, and take a moment with that before we have to jump into the politics behind it. It's really gross. It's really gross.
I agree.
Jennifer, did you want to tee up the next question?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I thought you were asking the next question. We make a plan and I forget it already.
Trust me, we understand. Two people like interviewing you gotta get there's logistics for sure.
Yes, right, for sure. So we just want to talk about, like, I know a little bit about your decision to start the podcast and like what the purpose was, but of course our listeners probably don't know a whole lot about that. So could you give us the background of why you started the podcast, what you hope to achieve, and what this journey has been like so far for you?
Yep, I can start this one. So, I'm going to go way back to how Ashley and I met each other. So we both work currently as IT consultants, and we met at both of our first jobs, actually, at a company in Ohio working in IT. And I was always like, Ashley's 4 years older than me, 4 or 5?
Yeah.
And I was always like, oh, Ashley's like badass. Like I really want to, I want to be her. I want to like work with her. And so, and it's funny because I was actually friends with Ashley's husband at work first before I was friends with Ashley. But so I was always like, oh, okay, like any opportunity that I get to work with Ashley, like I want to jump on that. And so she became head of our like intern program within the IS department, and she asked me if I wanted to work on that with her, and I was like, oh, absolutely. So we started to become friends and closer through that, and early on, like even before we worked together, I was like, oh, like I feel like I could work with Ashley on anything. Like if she asked me to do something and she was, fully behind it, I feel like I can't say no. So anyways, fast forward a bit. The 2020 election happened, and then Roe versus Wade was overturned. Ashley had left the company that we met at. I was still there, but we were still running in the same circles, drinking craft beer together on her porch. And so one day she texts me and she's like, hey, do you want to get lunch sometime this week? I want to pitch something to you. Excuse me. And this was like summer, like July of 2022, I believe. So like a month or so after Roe versus Wade was overturned. And I was like, yeah, sure. Mind you, also at this time, Ashley had a travel business where she was a travel agent and planning trips for people. And she knows that I also love to travel. So I was like, oh, she's going to ask me to like help with this business. Cool. Like I'm totally in. And little did I know, she came with me with a whole different idea that I would have never guessed in a million years. And so she asks if I want to do this political podcast and talk about politics and learn about politics. And a little bit of background for myself. I was never politically engaged. I was terrified to talk about politics. I didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole is often what I say. And I was not comfortable with it. I didn't see myself ever changing. Although in 2020, or I guess 2019, when the election was rolling around, I really started to get more engaged on my social media and really started to see the horrendous leadership that we had. And so I started to like perk my ears up a bit at politics, but I was still very, very, no, I don't want to have like a conversation with someone that disagrees with me. I will happily like stay in my echo chamber and talk with folks that agree with me and see what I see as I see it. So anyways, Ashley asked me to do this. And like I said before, I had known, like, if Ashley asked me to do something and she was fully behind it, like, I feel like I have to say yes. Not in a bad, like, peer pressure way, but just like, hell yeah, this is gonna be fun. And that's basically what happened. So that was July 2022. We started planning things and then dropped our first episode in October of 2022.
Nice.
So we're just coming up on 150 episodes. We're coming up on 3 years. And I will say I don't even recognize the version of myself that didn't want to touch politics. And that has been the most mind-blowing thing for myself. And even my friends and family members, like my mom told me like a couple years ago, not even that far into the podcast, she's like, like, I'm happy you're doing this, but I just never thought you were really into politics. I'm like, yeah, it's because I wasn't. Like, you nailed it.
Yep.
So it's been quite the journey for me personally. I know Ashley has a little bit of a different story in terms of her engagement in politics, but for me, it went from 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I'll be super quick, and then I'll just kind of talk about like how we've evolved a little bit too. So I have a poli-sci undergrad degree, along with a computer science undergrad degree. At 22, IT paid a lot more money than anything in political science, so that was where my life kind of took me. But I'd always been, I would say, interested, and I was never as engaged as I am now. But kind of the first Trump presidency happens, Roe falls. It's just like, I can't sit here anymore. I have a kid also in 2020, which I think just drastically made my perspective change. I was like, I cannot leave this type of world for him. I don't want to live in this type of world. And so I just so happened to like follow these entrepreneurs who dropped like a podcast course. And I was like, well, it was like pretty cheap. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. I have no idea what I would use that for. So I bought this podcast course. And then next thing you know, my mind's just kind of going. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to get involved in politics, I got to probably get like back up to snuff. Like I need to reread everything. I need to remember all my civics lessons. What if we did that and brought people along with us who are also in the same boat? Like they're frustrated. They want to get involved, right? They don't know how. And I just knew that was something I didn't want to do alone. I didn't want to be on a mic by myself, like doing that. And when I looked around at my group of friends and like people I was close to, like Sara nailed it. I mean, we've worked together so well and I knew we would. And also I always joke that like this was me forcing her to be my friend, like in real life. I was like, if you hang out with me enough to make a podcast, you have to be my real life friend. And here we are 3 years later. She's one of my best friends. So anyway, that was kind of how that all got started. And we, to Sara's point, it's night and day. I mean, the first couple episodes, you started your own pod, so you know how it is. Like, we look back at those episodes, we cringe so bad. People will tell us, hey, we found your pod, we started at the beginning. I'm like, oh my God, can you please not? Can you please start anywhere else?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it went from the most basic education, which we still try to do some of that, where we really want to meet people where they are, but all the way to like more complex topics that we're no longer so scared to tackle. And then we've just had incredible guests. The more we grow, it seems like the, kind of crazier guest requests come in and we're like, holy crap, we landed that person on the podcast. And so it's kind of how it's went from there.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I love hearing your story so much because I feel like these stories are similar everywhere, right? Like the folks who are not engaged in a political way just figuring out how to make it happen. And then now we are all in the space of like helping others kind of bridge that gap more easily and make it more accessible in that way too. So that's really, really, really cool to hear your story. And Jennifer and I, we started this podcast, what was it, February? So we're,
Yeah, I
a
think
couple
so.
of years behind you. And it came about because we just always would talk to each other like blah, 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 and this and
Yeah.
that. And like, what are you mad about? And this, whenever we would see each other. And finally we were like, we should just record these conversations. And like, because like they were, all encompassing and all the things. And we've been able to do some really awesome things here in our community that really flipped the script and flipped the whole idea that we're in a conservative town. And we just want other communities to be able to learn from those experiences as well. So it's super, super cool to hear you all on the same kind of track, because that's kind of the train we're on too.
Yeah, no,
That's
I love
awesome.
that. Yeah, I've listened or like looked into some of your episodes too. It's awesome what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to say, like, I love, like, I can relate to what Sara Petrie said, that, and in case people are wondering why I keep saying her last name, because Sarah Schultz, Sara Petrie, I just want you to know what I'm talking about. Which was surprising. Like, I figured we'd have multiple Jennifers on the podcast before we had multiple Saras. But I relate to what Sara was saying about, like, I mean, I've always been interested in politics, and like I was class president, I did that kind of stuff, had kids really young, so kind of was mostly family oriented, but I was still paying attention, not anywhere near as much as I did, once 2016 came around. That definitely was like flipped a switch for me. And that's when I got much more involved. But like, I didn't want to talk in front of people. I didn't want to knock on doors. I didn't want to make phone calls. I'm like, can I just work in the office? I don't mind talking to people that come in, but I don't really want to go out there. And now I'm like, let's give a speech. Let's just go talk to random people. I need to go to this fundraiser to meet new people. Like, I don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I think, Jennifer, it's funny because like back when we started this, I didn't realize like there were so many local orgs I could get involved with. Like we truly had no idea how to get involved, right? Like if we knew, we probably wouldn't have started a podcast. We probably would have just like joined our local organization. So it's almost kind of funny how like that journey has to happen. But it also always makes me think like, how do we help people know like they don't have to start a podcast to get involved? Like there's easier ways. So
yeah,
that's for sure one of the things that we want from ours is just to give people those basic skills and information of where to go to get started. That's one of the things we talked about in one of our TikToks, was just that like I'm from Midland. I moved out to the thumb of Michigan, which is super red. And 2017, I moved back to Midland. And like, it wasn't until I moved back to Midland and got involved in Midland politics that I realized, oh, there was a Huron Democratic Party where I lived before. There was ways I could have gotten involved, but I didn't know.
Right.
Yeah. And I wish that back then I could listen to podcasts like ours to help me figure that out. So it's been quite a journey for all of us, but I think it's a journey that is repeated in lots of different places all across the country. And there's power in that for sure. Power in that experience. And by the way, when Jennifer says the thumb,
oh, I know what you guys are talking about.
She means, the thumb of Michigan, because Michigan's a mitten. She means the thumb. It's like,
we're close enough. We know.
Yeah, we know about Michigan.
And I would just
like
say,
Michigan.
This is a meeting of Michigan and Ohio, and there's no issues. And there's the Sara without the H and the Sara with the H. And there's we're not fighting. We can all get along.
No.
Look, I'll be honest, I have been biting my tongue this whole time about the whole H, no H thing, but
Me
I'll
too.
keep it
Me too. I decided that my cooler head prevailed and we're just not going to discuss the H.
I was also
You're
going to
lucky
say,
I
we also didn't record this.
I woke up on the right side of the bed today.
And so are you.
Okay, are you anybody on Ohio State grad?
Oh, no,
okay.
But fans. No. I mean, that's all we have in Ohio, okay? So
I live in Columbus.
Yeah. And Sara's a Michigan State grad.
I went to Ohio University, which a lot of people think is OSU, but now I live in Columbus, like 2 miles from campus. So I do have a lot of, scarlet and gray.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, we won't talk about that either, but I will share, Ashley, that I also have a political science bachelor's degree, and then a master's in HR, and did the same thing, like went off in that direction. And I'm still in that direction in my like day job, but my second day job, which is this, um, has to do with the political science stuff. So there's some synergy there. Uh, well, let's talk a little bit about kindness, kind of moving on. Kindness is one of the things that you all have mentioned in, the sort of his history of your podcast, wanting to bring back into the political landscape. I'm wondering how that sort of squares with the current environment, especially like this time right after the murder of Charlie Kirk. And what do you think we all can do to kind of heal this huge divide when it comes to being just like so divisive in our politics and in our discourse?
Yeah, so I'll try to be as succinct as possible here. So, when we started the podcast, our tagline was bringing kindness and women into politics. And while we still strive for that every day, we did end up, I think, pivoting maybe right after the election to our new tagline of education to empower, action to drive change. And the reason we did that was because the word kindness was almost being used like as a weapon against us, honestly.
Yeah.
So, for example, we would share something about like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like she'd like said something about whenever the hurricanes hit, like how the government did that, right? Like the government controlled the weather and they sent the hurricanes to the red states so they couldn't vote for Trump. We shared like that with like a little clown face, like, hey, whatever. We have always been like, we will challenge ideas, we will, talk about policy. We're not going to go attack Marjorie Taylor Greene for her looks. Like to me, that is a line we won't cross. But we got people in the DMs like, oh, so much for kindness, so much for empowering women, only women you like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, if we can't call out like really insane ideas like that is like, what else were you even supposed to say to that? Like, that is a clown like face. Like we didn't say anything mean. We were just like, guys, should we be seriously taking this serious? So it just felt like it was being really weaponized against us. And I actually think that happens to the left often.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah. And so it was frustrating. And I don't want to say it felt like it held us back, but it just felt like it wasn't exactly aligned to where we wanted to be. Like I said, we will still uphold that, but we wanted to be able to be very direct. And for some reason, directness does not equal kindness to everyone, which is crazy. That has nothing to do with being kind, but we felt like it was kind of a weird situation to be in. And we really, when we got back to it, we had been around for a couple years at that point. We were like, this is really what we think we're doing. We're giving people educational information so they feel empowered to participate in politics, and we're giving them actionable items to do so they can drive change. And so we ended up kind of just reworking that tagline. But I think back to like, how do we bridge this divide? How do we fix our country? Honestly, I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Is just this insane divide between the two worlds. It's almost like we're living in two different worlds. My number one thing, two different realities. My number one thing, like if we could do it, is if you just could unplug social media, I think it would fix 90% of our problems.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do that, right? That's not realistic. Mega IT companies are going to be around. They're going to drive the algorithms. They're going to do the things that continue to divide us. So I think I read a story right after the Charlie Kirk thing, and it was somebody sharing how they had a conversation with a conservative person who viewed Charlie Kirk as a martyr. They were very good friends with this person, and they took the time to show each other their algorithms. Like each of them swapped phones, basically. Mm-hmm. And so the person on the left saw what the person on the right was typically seeing, which was Charlie Kirk saying very reasonable and very Christian-like things, right? Like things that make sense, things that you're like, yes, that's what Jesus would say. And then the person on the right got to see the left algorithm, and they got to see all of the disparaging, awful remarks Charlie Kirk has said around Black women, around LGBTQ plus community, around public executions, around all of the bad things, right, that we know he said because we are on the left. And both of them walked away, not necessarily maybe with their minds changed, but with a full understanding of like, wow, neither of us had the full picture. And so I say all that to say, I think the number one thing we can do is have hard conversations. I think what's challenging is many of us don't run in circles where that's possible.
Mhm.
I know personally, I don't have anyone that I'm close enough with on the right to have that conversation. So I don't know how we bridge that gap, but I think that is like the biggest thing we have to figure out is like, how can we start to bring these two sides that have naturally just, right, you run with like-minded people that have naturally kind of developed back together. I don't know if that's community events that have nothing to do with politics and just you share different interests, right? It's a book club, it's a community garden. I don't know. But I think that's what we have to figure out as a country if we're ever gonna fix this. Like the online world isn't gonna be it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was just listening to who was I listening this morning? Tim Miller, I think, talking to Aaron Ryan about social media and just how awful it is. And actually, I think John Favreau was talking to somebody about it today too. Like all the podcasts I was listening to were kind of talking about how the algorithms and what we're seeing is like it. I mean, the algorithms are designed to inflame us.
Yep.
Whether it's to make us happy or make us mad. I think most of the time it's mad. But they're designed a certain way, and it's not reality all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw. Oh, sorry, Sarah.
I was just going to say, just real quick along the social media piece, social media kind of subconsciously encourages us or leads us to dehumanizing the other side, which makes it a whole lot easier to want to not engage, to want to not have those hard conversations, to want to just talk shit all the time about the other side, because we have taken, like, we don't see any of their type of content because we're in our own echo chambers, and it's just, it encourages like the divide, the dehumanization of the other side. And yeah, I agree with Ashley. Get rid of social media. 90% of this will be solved.
I'm addicted. I don't know if I can agree because I don't know if I could do it, but you're probably right.
I know it would sting. It would sting, but
it would be hard. I really think I totally agree with all this. And I also think that social media encourages us to see each other in two dimensions. Like we're just two-dimensional, like, faces on a screen. And I had the experience a couple of times in 2020 as a candidate for Michigan State House, where people would see me, people, on the right, people who had just sort of believed what they had seen in on their feeds, in their mailboxes, on their televisions, and then see me out in the real world, right? In three dimensions and all my three-dimensional glory, and then still treat me like I'm a two-dimensional person, right? Like still sort of, there was one moment where we were all kind of teed up to walk in a parade just to kind of celebrate the 4th of July. And this man came up to me and just said, "You have evil in your soul." And he just started screaming at me with my children standing right next to me. And I have to believe that this person wouldn't normally do that under normal circumstances, but he had been like hyped up to believe that I was just this two-dimensional like caricature and not an actual person who lived in his community, who, whose kids probably went to school with my kids and all of that stuff. So I feel like that's super true, that like there's a scourge here that is social media. And I love the idea of the switching phones, because maybe if we can't like agree if I can't agree that I'm wrong and you're right, maybe I can agree that we're both being manipulated at some level, and maybe that's a start, right? So that's a very cool a cool thing.
Yeah. So our next question is, what piece of advice would you give to local activists and political volunteers on how they could build blue power in their own red communities?
Sarah, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So Ashley and I both have recently, or probably over the last year, have gotten really involved with our local orgs. And this is something that we learned super early on in our podcasting re-education of the government and its systems journey. Realizing how much opportunity there is at the local level and how much help is needed and wanted and appreciated at the local level. And you just have to search for it. So we always, always, always encourage our listeners and our audience to get involved locally. And by that, we literally mean like Googling local Democratic clubs. We're both involved in our indivisible chapters in our areas. But Jennifer, like you said, you didn't realize there was a Democratic club or organization where you used to live in a deep red county. So like it's there. And honestly, these days, like we have Google, let's use it. Or even like you can search on Instagram. All of these organizations have social media too. So it's just really getting involved and even to define getting involved, go to that first meeting, go to that first protest, meet some folks. I've only been welcomed with open arms and people wanting to meet me, know my name. And it's not because we have this podcast. It's because I'm someone, especially a younger someone who wants to get engaged and wants to help. And so we are always encouraging folks to get involved locally. And it's really easy to get fired up about a lot. And it's really easy to let that just lead us straight to the bed under the covers. Don't want to deal with it. And that's totally fine to do. And I do that a lot. But we also really encourage our listeners to take that passion, to take that rage. And like Ashley said, you don't have to start a podcast. There are other ways to kind of burn that energy. But hey, let's actually find those ways and use that energy and that passion and that anger in a productive way.
Yeah, that's usually my thing of like, first step is just Google indivisible and Google local Democratic Party. Or if you're not if you don't want to be a Democrat, there's other things, like Google those things. I'm chair of our local Democratic Party, and our city has voted for governor twice Democratic, secretary of state, attorney general twice for Democratic. We have a Democratic Congress person. It was Dan Kildee and now it's Chris McDonald-Rivet, state senator. Like our city has voted for Democrats a lot up and down the ballot. And I still have people like, oh, I didn't know there was a Democratic Party. I'm like, then you're not paying attention.
Yeah, I would just add to everything Sara said, obviously totally agree with. I would just add like one thing I think especially really red places need to do is never let a race go uncontested.
100%.
So I think that's something we had Anderson Clayton on our pod a little while ago now. She's the head of the Democratic Party in North Carolina. And when she had entered that chair, that was the one thing she basically made her focus. And they have done a phenomenal job down there of like growing blue power in very red places. And the other things that I think you can do, right? It's not just like running someone. Running someone is super important. We should not let uncontested races happen. But it's like showing up, and like the Democratic Party is organizing a trash pickup at your local park. The Democratic Party is doing a food drive. Like that is the stuff I think we have to be doing. We have to show everyone in these rural areas that like the Democratic Party is for good. We want good things to happen to our communities, because truly the brainwashing and the propaganda, like to your point, like Sara, the stuff that person came up to you and said, people are like brainwashed to think we're like the devil. Like it is a long road we have to getting back to like people not viewing the Democratic Party in a really bad way. And so that's my biggest thing is like, if you can get involved in your Democratic Party, do that and pitch ideas like that. Not everything has to be political. Help your community, find ways to make your community better. And then on top of that, if you don't have a Democratic Party in your local community, start one. Start it. You will find people that join you, like showing them that there are other people who don't agree with what's happening in the way the Republican Party is going is like an amazing step. People need to see that solidarity. They need to know they're not alone.
Totally. Yeah. We talk a lot about like transactional versus transformational relationships. And by that, I mean like what you're saying, like show up even when it's not an election year, show up at the senior, expo at the mall and have a table, show up at the fair and talk to people, show up and do the highway cleanups and all of those things, because then you have a transformational relationship with your community. And it's not like you're only showing up 2 months before every election and knocking on doors and having if you're lucky, a 17-second conversation with somebody. That's transactional. We have to move beyond being transactional, even and especially in these red communities. So they see us three-dimensionally and as community members just trying to do the best good, in all the ways that we're, working on. And I totally agree also what you said, Sarah, about showing up to those spaces and you'll be welcomed with open arms, because one of the most dangerous things in this work is loneliness, right?
Yeah.
People feel lonely and they just drive into this doom spiral. And if they feel like they're the only Democrat in their, county, then they're not going to be able to actualize their best talents and gifts. They're just going to be hidden under their blankets in the doom spiral. And so many times, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, people saying oh my God, I've never met another Democrat in my community. Or, I put out a political sign and I thought that I was going to get egged every day, but then suddenly some other political sign went out and then another one, because courage begets courage. And so if we can combat this loneliness, that can do a lot. And if people start to find each other and build their power, and showing up, physically showing up right to those spaces is so meaningful. It's just really important.
And I will I just wanted to add on to that. Well, first of all, the showing up at places, as a Democratic Party chair, you probably do have an idea, but listeners, you have no idea how excited we are when somebody walks through that door at a meeting and we're like, oh, that's a new person, that's awesome. Or somebody emails me or calls me and says, I want to volunteer. What can I do to get involved? Oh my gosh, you're my new best friend. It makes us so happy when that happens. And then the other thing I will talk about the brainwashing just really briefly, just as an example, my father is a lifelong Republican, didn't like Trump from the get-go, but has voted for him every single time for dumb reasons that I won't go into. But this last election, he called me when I was at the Democratic office and I was just super busy. I mean, it has just been insane how much busier Midland has gotten because we're a competitive place now. And he called me to ask me about something else. And I'm like, oh, I'm at the office. And so then he started talking politics and I'm like, you really don't want to do that. But he's like, I'm sorry, I'm still going to vote for Trump. I know he says bad things, but the Democrats are just so much worse. And I still regret that I did not sit down and say, all right, let's talk about that. What is it about the Democrats that is so much worse? I regret not having that conversation. Him knowing that his daughter is the chair of the Democratic Party, that his other daughter votes Democratic, that that his grandkids are all Democratic. And it just, I really wish I would have had that conversation with him. But to him, it's like, well, my family's okay. I mean, they're lost. They're voting for Democrats. I can't, that's okay. I still love them, but the rest of those Democrats are evil.
Wild. These are wild times.
Yeah. I always think, I know we're cutting it close on time, but Jennifer, just to confer or hopefully make you feel better, I would much rather, talk to a stranger who disagrees with me than my family who disagrees with me. Hands down, any day. I have actually banned myself from talking to some of my family members about politics because I even dipped my toe and I was like, nope, I'm not going to do this. Probably a little hypocritical, but to make you feel better, I am the same way.
Yeah, because you want to keep that family relationship. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah,
for sure. So I think we have time for one last question, and this one is our kind of lightning round question that we save for the end, which is a fun way to sort of conclude, so we can kind of learn one last thing about each other before we're done. And it's usually a silly icebreaker kind of question. So here's the question today. The question is, what would your warning label be if you had one? If you had a warning label.
I love this question.
What would it be?
Mm.
So
that's
Lily,
so
think
good.
about it.
Yours. Give
I do
them
know
time to
mine.
think.
So I had time to think because I came up with the question. So I'll share mine as you're kind of thinking of yours. When you answer, start with the word warning. Okay.
All right.
So my warning label would be warning may convert random things into Excel spreadsheets.
That's good.
Incredible.
This is for sure true. Yes.
I love Excel. I
I'll
call
do
people
mine.
to tell them about my Excel spreadsheets. Like,
Yeah.
let me just tell you about this Excel spreadsheet that I just did. So, Jennifer, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, so my warning label used to be warning does not live well with others. I could not handle other people's messes or their just like all their little things. Like it would drive me nuts. But I have since given up on that. And like, I mean, I have 5 kids, so I just gave up. Life is what it is. I try not to let it bother me anymore. So now, I don't know. I guess maybe I could go with warning. We'll try to turn that image into a cross stitch if you let her.
Oh, that's cute.
That is true.
Okay. I think I
confirm.
have mine. Sarah, do you want to go or do you?
No, I need more time. I need time to solidify it.
I don't know that I'm gonna like say it well, but I have a general gist. So I think I would say like warning may try to solve every problem there is and do all the things at once. And the joke here is like I truly like, I'm in the Indivisible chapter, like Sara said, like we work full-time jobs, we have the podcast. I joined my League of Women Voters. Like I just try to go to like everything and do everything. And my husband's always like, you need to chill. And then I'll, of course, like, and I can run like that for quite a while, but then I'll have like 3 days where I'm like, I can't leave the house, I'm crashing out, which I do not suggest, not healthy. But that's very much my personality.
I'm guessing that warning label could probably apply to all of us.
I would think so, yeah. I feel like you don't do this without being like semi like
that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not 100% on the phrasing, but I this is the gist. Warning, loud laugh will turn heads. I have an extremely loud laugh, and if I am meeting someone new for the first time in person, I always forget how alarming it is to be, especially kids, like kids who are a little more quiet too. Like I think Ashley's kid was scared of me for a bit. So yeah, I would say that's my warning.
That's warning. Funny. I love that. I love people with big laughs. So
thank you.
Very cool. Well, Ashley and Sara, thank you so much for spending some time with us today and for all the amazing work that you're doing. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us today. This is the Beyond Resistance Pod, where we share hard-won insights to build blue power and red communities and start winning. Come back next time.
Thank you so much for having us.
Girls. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
All right. See everybody later.